Hello and welcome to day 11 of me eating a high sugar diet and using a CGM. So there's a CGM monitor. That's not CGM. CGM is in my arm here, and I'm using the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus, which means that it's not just a flash monitor. This one monitors you all the time, continuously. So these are my live blood glucose levels here, and it's the morning of day 11, and I haven't eaten anything yet. So I thought you might be, or you might not be, interested in seeing what I eat on a high sugar diet. So I recommend a high sugar diet to lose weight. Primarily, I help people lose weight. That's what I specialize in. But I also help people, as a positive consequence, regain their health. And one of those numerous ways of regaining your health is to reverse type 2 diabetes. So that's right, it is reversible. So I hope you don't mind me eating with an open mouth. I'm gonna have my breakfast, and you'll be able to see my blood glucose live here. This is the app, which is receiving information as we speak from my continuous blood glucose monitor that I have on my arm. And yeah, I'm not a massive fan of technology generally in life, but there are a few exceptions, such as the camera that I'm using, obviously, to record these videos, and stuff like this. So cheers. So again, I hope you don't mind. This isn't one of those channels where people film themselves eating and being, I think, a bit disgusting, but just to show what I eat on a high sugar diet. So, thank you. Yeah, that's very good. So you can see here that on the graph, so it's the morning of day 11, and you can see here, this is the range. You'll be able to see the range, my current levels of blood glucose in millimole, and you'll be able to see that my fasting blood glucose levels here. I can't exactly see the graph, so I'm hoping I'm generally where it is. My fasting blood glucose levels here during the night were low, so low in a healthy range, so around sort of 3.5 to 4 millimole during the night. And you'll be able to check out what I ate for day 10. So this is what you would expect. So I'm starting off with some fruit. Again, I hope you don't mind me eating with a open mouth, but this is for, educational purposes. So I say I haven't had anything yet since last night. Last night, which would have been about 8 o'clock, and essentially that means I've been fasting so my sleep has been my fast, which means I've been at least 12 hours, if not 13 hours or more, and I've already had some water. So I always start the day with some water. 500 milliliters of water. I always think that's a good start to the day. And I think it always helps your digestion to get going in the morning. So yeah, you can eat and then have water, or have water while you're eating. But I always think that water first thing before you eat. So a few minutes before you eat just helps you aids you in digestion. So I always then go for some juice. So with my food or whatever I'm having, whether it's under here, so this is what I'm about to have after in this bowl. This is what I'm about to have after I've had some of this fruit. I always really like juice, so fruit juice or orange juice. You know, I'm a big fan of juices, fruit juices. I always think it's a really good idea to get the sugars in the morning, you know, as quickly as possible. And if you can't prepare some food, one of the foods that I recommend, then a really good start quickly, a quick way, is just to go straight for your juice and start getting sugars in. Start getting energy in you need. So just for the video, I would finish them, but just for the video, I'm gonna eat my rice. So if I was gonna have fruit in the morning, I would generally go, my rule of thumb or my recommendations would be for the most sugary fruits. So for example, like mangoes or watermelon, for example, and also bananas. But the thing is with bananas, you have to eat quite a lot of them to get the sugars you need. And generally, you have to eat quite a lot of fruit to, I think, get the required amount of sugars that you need. So this is a high sugar, low fat, low protein approach to, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle that you do every day, and it allows you to lose weight. So firstly, if you want to lose weight, it helps you lose weight, and then once you're losing weight, you can then helps you to then stay lean because it's naturally low in fat. So I would usually have more rice than this, but I need to make more, run out. So this is probably about 350 grams or so of white rice, cooked white rice, maybe 400 grams, 350, 400 grams. And I've just got some soy sauce on here. I go for the less salt one. Hope you enjoyed me eating. I thought it'd just be interesting so you can see my blood glucose levels live. It's exciting, isn't it? Taking this technology, beaming live from my arm, my fluids in my arm, blood in my arm. So there is a needle on the back of these CGMs, which when you apply it on your arm with the little device that it comes with, I recommend you don't look at it, because when I did, it was quite scary. Yeah. It is painful when you first apply it, and I've noticed that, yeah, it can, if you move over in your sleep and you knock it, it can be painful, but otherwise most of the time it's okay, to be honest. So one great thing about starting the day with fruit is because fruit contains fructose, the body doesn't necessarily need to use insulin in order to absorb fructose, whereas the body needs to use insulin for glucose. So that means that you're getting less of an insulin response when you're having fruit or when you're having fructose, which you find there's fructose in fruit. So fruit has a lot of fructose and glucose in it, whereas starches like rice, these are long chains of glucose molecules. So these are more simple sugars like this, whereas rice is long chains of glucose molecules, more complex carbohydrate starches, and these break down along with other macronutrients, like you've got fiber in here as well. But the reason why I think rice is great is because it gives you this amazing energy that fruit is good, but you have to eat a lot of it. I think you have to eat a lot of it to get the energy, the sugar that you need in order to power you through your day. So today I'm not going to do any exercise. So I'm just going to be in the office all day, and essentially all the exercise I'll be doing is getting up to get more food during the day. Otherwise I'll be sitting down, and you'll be able to see what different foods, what the chart looks like. Just make sure it's not going off. You'll be able to see my password now. Thumb to the rescue. There we go. So you can only have your phone on. Oh, my phone can only have 10 minutes before it goes blank. So I have to keep waking it up. So you'll be able to see what my blood glucose levels are during the day, how they're affected by different foods. Do I have spikes, blood glucose spikes? What will my trend of my blood glucose be? Will it be like this? Will it be like this? So what we're looking for is to not be diabetic, okay? So, yeah. You'll be able to see in my other videos, I'm always lean. So you can always see that I'm always lean. So hopefully you can see that this doesn't put you off me eating, but I'm always lean, and that's because of the food I eat. Not necessarily because I do lots and lots of exercise, which I do like cycling, love cycling. But the most powerful way, the most important tool, I call it a tool, is your diet. So it's what you eat. So if you're eating foods that are essentially poisoning you, so I call it, they're poisoning you as in they're making you sick. So if you're overweight and type 2 diabetic, this is being type 2. This is being caused by eating the wrong food. So, if you have disease, this is dis-ease. So I always like to use the same breakdowns of words to explain what I'm talking about. So, if you are at dis-ease, then your body is at dis-ease, dis-ease, okay? So you want to be at ease, which eating like this allows you to be, your body to be at ease, okay, and not at dis-ease. See what I mean? And the reason for that is because this is a low fat, so primarily low fat and also low protein, because excess dietary fat is causing your type 2 diabetes, or your friends or family or people, or millions of people in society. It's excess dietary fat. Okay, so you'll be able to see, and you'll be able to see on my other videos in this series, what we're looking for is we're looking for, is my blood glucose levels elevated at any point during the day? And as you can already see from my fasting levels overnight, they were not elevated. They weren't high. They didn't remain higher. So you can probably see my blood glucose levels now are starting to go up, which you'd expect. And the whole reason why we eat is to increase our blood glucose levels, okay? So it's not scary or wrong to see an increase in our blood glucose levels, because every cell in the human body runs on glucose-derived ATP. So ATP is the molecule that the body uses in order to carry out, so every cell carries out its function, and it uses ATP as its source of fuel. And ATP is made in the body through the primary energy system, firstly of glycolysis, from glucose to make ATP, and then in the mitochondria through the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation and the electron transport chain to produce ATP. So if you don't get enough, you don't make ATP, you'll cease to exist. And if you don't have glucose in the blood, you will also cease to exist, okay? And these also are the best foods, aren't they? Rice and fruit. When we think about what's nice, what's appealing, like juices, like I love fruit juices so much. They feel so good, so clean, so light on the digestion. And they're full of minerals and vitamins. And people say, well, fruit juice, it's not good for you because it's lacking fiber. Well, I don't just eat, and I don't recommend just a fruit juice diet, okay? It's part of what I recommend, part of the high sugar diet, which, if you watch my videos, you'll be able to see it's an all-encompassing diet of whole foods. So yeah, you have like the whole foods like fruit, but then you also have some processed foods. So this is a plant-based vegan lifestyle. So there's no processed or the ultra-processed animal products like hot dogs, which, if you know what hot dogs are, is horrific. So there's nothing like that. But there are some processed foods like white rice and fruit juices. And for example, I'll show you later some other processed foods that I eat. But they're all low fat and low protein overall. And yeah, vegan, plant-based. which is not necessarily healthy compared to a processed plant-based. So yeah, if you're still eating burgers, so I'm not saying I don't eat burgers and processed high-fat, high-protein vegan foods. This is still unhealthy. So if it's high-fat, it's still unhealthy, okay? So I'm trying not to choke while I'm eating. So this is good. The low fat is good because this means that insulin, you can be sensitive to insulin. So you can probably see my blood glucose levels are going up right now. So because I'm sensitive to insulin, this means that I'm not type 2 diabetic. I'm not type 2. So type 2 is when someone is producing as much or maybe more insulin than someone who's not type 2 diabetic. But the insulin is not working because it's being paralyzed by excess fat. And what do I mean? What do I mean by paralyzed? Because that might give you images of a person paralyzed. Well, just like a person who's paralyzed and they can't act normally, like if they're paralyzed from the waist down, and they can't actually perform normally, then fat stops or blocks the insulin that your body releases from the pancreas. It blocks the insulin receptor site, which stops the normal function of insulin. So as I said, the whole point of eating is to increase your blood glucose level, because every cell in the human body, as I say, runs on glucose. So you can eat fat and protein, and the body will use fat and protein to produce glucose, but you're getting so many of these negative health consequences if you switch to the low carb, high fat, high protein approach. Okay. And most people just naturally in the standard American diet or standard Western diet, without knowing it, are already eating a high fat, high protein diet. So a lot of people already are pre-diabetic and don't realize it. And quite often people get diagnosed as diabetic because they go in for some other test, blood tests or whatever it might be, other disease or health problem. And then it just gets discovered as a consequence. Type 2 diabetes just gets discovered. So, a high fat, high protein approach, if you remove sugar from your diet and you were to make a graph like this, yeah, during the day you would see, if you're literally just eating fat and protein, the blood glucose levels would remain essentially more flat across the day. However, you're still type 2 diabetic. Okay, so as soon as you were to have some sugar water, for example, or some fruit juice, you would see your blood glucose levels go up, like mine are right now. And then once they peaked, what you'd see is the blood glucose levels would remain high. So you'll be able to see now that I've finished that. For the next few minutes, my blood glucose levels are going to increase, and eventually they'll stop. And you should see they'll start coming down, and it'll make it look like a spike, so it'll look like this. It's gone off again. No. So there you go. So it's going up. So we'll wait and see whether my hypothesis is correct. Like so many people say, you should eat the high fat, the high protein approach. Well, the reason for this is because you have to realize if something is reversible through diet, and type 2 diabetes makes a lot of money for the pharmaceutical industry and does more and more so every year, to say, well, let's stop people eating what makes them diabetic, it's not good for business. Okay, so a sick population does generate more money rather than a healthy population. So if you're always being told, well, sugar is bad and fat and protein is good, people will never get healthy. And instead of treating the cause of all of these health problems in the West, like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, even stuff like constipation, which is, ridiculous to me, because so many people, if they just change to, I think, foods that also taste the best, like that bowl of white rice and these pretty nice sugary strawberries and the orange juice and fruit juices, all you have to take out, for example, like the white rice, the bowl of white rice, quite often you'll say, well, I need to add some chicken or whatever animal to it, which is, fried or cooked in fat, and the chicken's high in fat and high in protein. Then all you have to do is remove that, and then over a period of months and years, eating what is healthy, which is removing the fat and the protein. So not zero fat and zero protein, but just removing this excess fat and protein. You'll find that you'll eventually look like maybe people that eat like the white. Sorry about the cut or the jump in the video. I just ran out of memory in the camera. So hopefully you can see now that it's been a few minutes now since I've eaten. You'll be able to see my blood glucose levels here. And I'll be able to see them as well because I can't see them. So we've gone up to about 8. And yeah, so this was through the night, fasting levels of glucose through the night. And you can see you want to be looking generally healthy ranges between 3 and 10 millimoles. And you can see here, they would say, well, that's good. You're not diabetic. Because if I was diabetic, what it would look more like is, and it probably is if you got pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetic, it would remain. So if my levels were here during the night, after I'd last eaten and gone to bed, your levels from eating would still be up here, and maybe they would just be coming down maybe by the time that you're eating again for breakfast. So my blood glucose levels are well controlled. my body is controlling them well. So my insulin is working effectively. My internal feedback systems in my body are looking after me well, and I have the energy to power me through my day on this high sugar diet. So it's going to form what looks like a spike. So it's going along and it'll go like this. So it'll go up and it'll come down. Hopefully in the time that I'm talking, it'll start to come down. So you'll be able to see it's sort of forming a tip of the spike. What's important is that you don't get conned, okay? So, or confused when people say, oh, blood glucose spikes are terrible, and you're being confused and distracted from what is important. And what's important is your fasting levels of blood glucose. So if they're high and elevated during the day, this is when you're diabetic. And this is when you're going to have damage to your body, and this is when it's harmful. But a spike, this is not the association with ill health. The association is elevated levels constantly, chronically, and that's type 2 diabetes. And it can be reversed. As you can see, the evidence is here that the high sugar diet does not cause type 2 diabetes. And if you're getting confused between type 1 and type 2, type 1 is when the beta cells, or beta cells if you're American, so beta cells no longer function properly in order to produce insulin from the pancreas because they have been attacked by the body's own immune system when you're a child. So it's type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. And we know now the association, the cause of cow's milk or animal milk, so mainly cow's milk because that's what most people drink. So dairy, and it causes the body to attack its own pancreas because of foreign protein that gets into the body, which it shouldn't necessarily cross over into the blood and get into the body. It should be broken down and then used and absorbed. But sometimes protein does slip through and then get identified as foreign. But because the protein is so similar enough to the human protein found in humans, so this is molecular mimicry, then your body will then attack its own body, and that's an autoimmune disease. And these things that I say, they get people who are selling the high fat, high protein diet and therefore making a living from that. They will therefore defend the high protein and high fat lifestyle because it makes the most money, because it then leads to ill health, which then generates money. So yeah, the world is horrific, and I help. That's also another thing that I do on this channel. I help people understand how the world works, as well as their health, explaining health. So yes, people are being conned, their lives are being destroyed, their health being destroyed because it's making a lot of money, and this is the world that we live in. So like and subscribe, because these videos, I think, are very full of information for information purposes, and might just change your life, save your life. So I think you can see the blood glucose levels are now coming down, starting to come down. So you don't need me to see, you don't need to see me anymore. You'll be able to see that'll come down, and I'll show you what I'm going to eat again in a few hours, maybe a few hours. And you'll be able to see, I'll eat different foods throughout the day, and I'll show you what those foods do to my blood glucose levels. And these foods will keep my insulin sensitivity high and therefore my insulin resistance low. So I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for your time. So it's been a few hours now since I've last eaten, and as you can see, this was my sleep, and then this was my breakfast, and as you can see, my blood glucose levels came down beautifully. I just finished off that little bit of fruit, so it makes the graph look like it's not straight up and straight down. So it went up and then it wasn't straight down. If I'd just eaten all in one, it would have been more like this, but instead it's more like a slight deviation. But then it comes down, and as you can see, the blood glucose levels there. Looks good, doesn't it? Looks good. Not type 2 diabetic, okay? So as you can see, that's what my current glucose levels are right now. So beautifully maintained, okay? So this is what you're looking for. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to eat now. So I've just made this, so some freshly cooked white rice, and I'm going to put it in the bowl here with some spicy herbs and spices tomato sauce here, but trying to spill it. And yeah, there's some beans in there. Don't eat beans that often. This is just what we call chili meal in this household, and it's been passed from my parents. Were told about a recipe from someone they'd met when they were younger who was from the Middle East, and they passed that recipe on to them, and now we have this amazing chili meal, as long as it's cooked right. That's an inside joke, okay? So I'm gonna, and it is, there was nothing wrong with this, okay? So I'm gonna have that with the rice, and again I'm gonna have it to feel full, so I'll probably have, and I have a little book here, you know, if you know, I don't keep one now because I know how much I need, but if you want to, when you start eating like this, you can write down how much you had, and you can keep a note, a diary, a food diary of how much you're eating, and therefore you know every time how much you need, so you're not, you know, wasting it if you're eating too much, or you're not, if you haven't made enough. It's annoying, isn't it? So I just recommend making, you know, a big load of rice if you're gonna make rice, and then so either on a hob or on a rice cooker. And yeah, I'm gonna probably have about 600-700 grams. That's probably what will make me feel full, with my nice spicy herb and spicy, hot and spicy chili tomato sauce. And I'll show you again in another few hours what my blood glucose levels look like once I've eaten that, and you'll be able to see my blood glucose level is, I'd say, yeah, that's perfect. Whatever your health professional might say it needs to look like, if you show them this, they go, well, this is what you want to aim for. Okay, so it's about fasting blood glucose levels, so between when you eat. Now, I don't have a chronically elevated levels, so my blood glucose level came down. They didn't stay up here, or they're not still going up. It was maintained by insulin, and you can see I'm sensitive to insulin because the blood glucose levels came down. So my body's maintaining itself. Whereas if you're type 2 diabetic, the insulin is not allowed to work properly because of the excess fat. So I hope you're enjoying the video and you'll be able to come back. I'll come back to you and I'll show you what I ate. Okay. It's coming up to dinner or tea now, and I haven't eaten anything for hours, so this period here I haven't eaten, so that's just my naturally fluctuating blood glucose level here within range. So this was breakfast and then lunch, and this is my current glucose level, and I'm about to have my tea. So that's right, I'm gonna have some baked beans, and because I just fancied them, and then I'm probably going to, that's not all I'm going to eat, that's just what I'm going to have first, and then you'll be able to see what my blood glucose levels are in a few hours before I go to bed, after I've eaten everything that I'm going to eat for today. Now it's been half an hour or so, 45 minutes since I've had my beans, which was this increase here, and then it came down, and I also had it with some oat milk. And now the last thing I'm going to eat is gonna have some cornflakes. So I'm just gonna have what I think makes me feel full. So I'm gonna have, probably finish off the box basically, and then I'm gonna have that with some oat milk, and then just for some taste, I've only got one hand, I'd usually pour it on, so I'm gonna add some sugar on there, make it nice and sweet, and yeah, that's probably, what's that, that's a 670 gram box, and I just had the last of it, so that must be what's that, 150 grams, and I'll just finish off the oat milk. So it was about 500 milliliters of oat milk, nice and creamy there. Just give it a taste test. Good stuff. So I'll just eat that to feel full, and I'll probably add some bit more sugar with a dry spoon, and I'll show you what this will do to my blood glucose levels once I've finished and before I go to bed, and you'll be able to see that I'm still not diabetic. Now that's the end of the day's eating. Coming up to about 10 p.m. and this was my last thing I ate, and I also just had some with this just after I'd eaten my cornflakes. Excuse me, I'm tired. Time for bed. I had 2 ice lollies, and then as you can see, my blood glucose levels came down. So you'll be able to see tomorrow what my fasting insulin levels are overnight to show that I'm not diabetic. And yeah, I say it's painful, the CGM, but I'm enjoying getting all this data to show the evidence of what I eat and that it works, and that high sugar diet does not cause type 2 diabetes. And as you can see in all my videos, I'm lean, and yeah, I read the science of what has been done in the past, and sometimes I have to go back almost, 100 years, and I repeat the data. So this is data that is amazing because I can do it without needing to do an expensive scientific study. I can show, well, it was fairly expensive, the CGM, but it doesn't cost thousands and thousands of pounds or millions of pounds of research to show the evidence. And day after day is more and more data, which is good. So like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.